G'day guys and gal, the Grey Knights were more or less the Emperor's contingency plan for when the galaxy became a place with no Emperor and no loyalist Primarchs remaining. They were to take the mantle of the Demon Hunter, and they were the ones that were to swoop in whenever a demon Primarch would appear, or any demon for that matter. The Grey Knights have banished Mortarion, Magnus, and Angron, alongside countless other greater demons. These dudes fuck, and they fuck hard. But in a faction known for being absolute badasses performing awesome feats all the time, what are their 5 most insane missions they have partaken in? Before we get started, boy, the major mini releases don't stop coming. This is a model I've been gearing up for a while. We are bringing back the Grey Slayer, better than ever. The original Grey Slayer was one of our best sellers, but I just wasn't happy with the model. The helmet, the proportions, the pose, it just wasn't doing it for me. But then Doom released the Dark Ages with a sick new Slayer design, and I knew it was time. We have remastered the Grey Slayer, taking all the best elements for his designs, but especially the Dark Ages, which just works so much better. I got my best modeler to create it, ensuring the armor lettering detail was way more clear and paintable. We also went insano style with the weapon loadout. You can have either his gun, shield, sword, or wrist blade on either hand, meaning you can customize the shit out of your Grey Slayer. But wait, there's more. We're also releasing a champion of each of the ruinous gods to challenge him. The Demon Warbringer, a fierce warrior beast. The Demon Seductress, a fucking slut. The Demon Mind Devourer, a fucking nerd. And the Demon Plague Spreaders gives you 2 little shits. You can get all these demons separately, or you can get them in, ready? The Doom Diorama, which features all 6 models as well as a custom limited edition base, which acts as a diorama for the set. We're also printing the Doom Diorama and its models in our 12K Ultra Premium resin, literally the best resin money can buy, and it costs us twice as much as our already elite tier standard resin. We're only selling 100 of these Doom Dioramas. Once they're sold out, the models will only be available separately. I'll also be sending out an email to all previous purchasers of the old Grey Slayer, giving you a discount to get the new Grey Slayer. Everyone, welcome back to Grey Slayer. This is sick. Link is below. Today we'll go over 5 of the Grey Knight's most insane missions. Hold on to your dicks. Let's get into it. I want to start with one of the most bonkers pieces of Grey Knight lore that is often misquoted or misunderstood. That being when Kaldor Draigo decided he was a Giga Chad and kicked Mortarion's ass and carved his fallen lord's name onto his heart. Now usually it takes a large squad of Grey Knights dying to send a demon Primarch back to hell. So how did one Grey Knight manage it? Well, in the final century of M41, so this would have been the banishment that kept Mortarion on the sidelines until the Plague Wars, the planet of Cornovin was getting licked by the Death Guard, and the entire Grey Knights chapter was deployed to deal with it. This was an unprecedented show of Grey Knight force. Not just Kaldor going in and fucking shit up. Despite their entire chapter being summoned forth, the Grey Knights were losing, suffering huge casualties and being beaten back. The Supreme Grand Master himself, at the time, Gerontion, was personally killed by Mortarion. As the last of the Grey Knights prepared to make a last stand, they chose Kaldor as their new Supreme Grand Master, which transferred secret Grand Master knowledge to him, such as Mortarion's true name, the name he was supposed to have and be given by the Emperor before he was instead given Mortarion. I'm also of the belief that the Noble Shard of Magnus was transferred to him as well, dating its lineage back to the first Supreme Grand Master, which would explain a lot of Kaldor's insane feats, but that is still just a fan theory at the moment. Now, knowing someone's true name isn't just a game over. If they have psychic shielding or a lot of willpower, they can resist it and carry on with their day. However, with things being so desperate, Draigo fought through to Mortarion, killing a number of his Death Shroud bodyguards, but then he got his tits licked by the Death Lord. Mortarion was smacking him around like he was the wife of a whiskey addict. As Mortarion was about to finish him, Draigo summoned a final desperate psychic bolt. It didn't really hurt Mortarion much, but it did surprise him for a split second, lowering his mental guard, which allowed Draigo to speak his true name. The effect was devastating. Mortarion's form broke and twisted, allowing Draigo to rip out his heart and carve the name of Gerontion, his fallen lord, onto it, banishing the demon to the warp and winning the battle. As the lore has shown us time and time again, true names are especially effective against demons. So yes, it is a little bit Mary Sue, however it wasn't like Draigo just waltzed in and fucked him up. He was given a slim chance of winning via a potent custom weapon, and he barely survived doing it. It's like if you were fighting a 10-year-old kid and kicking his shit in, but then he throws sand in your eyes, and while you're distracted, pulls out a gun and shoots you. You know what, that's a great analogy. Another Grey Knight vs Primarch showdown was the first war for Armageddon, before the Orcs came. This was Space Wolves and Grey Knights vs Angron, which then became Space Wolves vs Grey Knights, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Now once again, calling a world Armageddon in the setting of 40k is fucking retarded and just invites conflict, but the Imperium have never really been the best at common sense. Basically, the war started because a space Hulk called the Devourer of Stars, Hectic, floated out of the Eye of Terror and begun hurtling towards Armageddon. Angron had taken control of it, and his desire for blood literally pulled the Hulk towards Armageddon like a magnet. Even light years away, his aura created a blood madness that caused massive civil unrest, and when he arrived, half of the world's defenders joined Angron, and yeah, it wasn't great. After a few short days, the remaining loyalists had been forced into the jungles and prepared a last stand. However, the Space Wolves led by Logan were also assigned to defend this section of space and were nearby, so they came to help. The Space Wolves were well suited to fighting the World Eaters. They could match their ferocity, but also had the tactical sense and knowledge on how to bait them into ambushes, causing huge traitor casualties. However, the onslaught of Angron was great, and Logan was like, well shit, time to call in the Grey Knights, as each chapter master is granted knowledge of the Grey Knights' existence. The Grey Knights were very punctual, and deployed 109 Grey Knight Terminators to face Angron, who himself had 12 Bloodthirster bodyguards, which is pretty fucking crazy when you think about it. The Grey Knights were dying, but they kept Angron and his demons tied up, whilst the Space Wolves led a huge counterattack. Angron killed 5 Grey Knights with a single stroke of his blade. However, Hyperion, a young Grey Knight warrior, managed to use his will and power to break Angron's black blade, something that shocked Angron and allowed another Grey Knight captain to perform a special ritual of banishment on Angron, sending him to hell for 100 years and a day. Because fuck you, Angron. The effort killed the captain, but Hyperion survived. With Angron gone and Logan motherfucking Grimner going ham, the Core Knight forces were smashed and obliterated, although only 13 Grey Knights would survive. Now, how the fuck did Hyperion, a young Grey Knight recruit, break Angron's blade? Well, this isn't actually a case of bullshit hacks and bad writing. See, Hyperion was a special psyker that actually featured heavily in the Inquisition series. He was found by Inquisitor Ravenor, who initially thought he was a rare but overall pretty weak psyker, having more of a support ability. However, it was later discovered he was like a 1 in a quadrillion psyker with obscene potential. The kid, accidentally, managed to overwhelm the blankness of a pariah and then completely get rid of it, turning them into just a normal human being, no blankness. The only other person who seems completely unbothered and unaffected by blanks was the Emperor. This kid would be handed over to the Inquisition, who would then hand him over to the Grey Knights, eventually leading him to become Hyperion, the Blade Breaker. Badass. Now for the third insane Grey Knight mission, and yes, it also involves another demon Primarch. Magnus was launching his latest and greatest assault on Fenris, because the dude just can't get over Prospero, goddammit. This was actually a pretty hectic invasion. Like, it took France less than 100 years to get over World War II, and you're telling me after 10,000 years the man's still salty. This was actually a pretty hectic invasion. See, he invaded the entire system at once, baited the main Space Wolf force away from Fenris, and also gaslit the Dark Angels into attacking Fenris as well via using the Changeling. See, Wolfen was starting to appear across space and attacking Chaos forces, which was an omen for the return of Leman Russ. So 90% of the Wolves went out to search for the Wolfen, hoping this would lead them to Russ and also keep the Wolfen hush-hush because it's a bad look. The Grey Knights encountered the Wolves and discovered the Wolfen, but were pretty cool about it, as fundamentally Wolfen are not corrupted by Chaos, and if anything are actually anti-Chaos warriors. During this encounter, the Grey Knights summarized that Magnus would make a move on Fenris, so the Wolves and Grey Knights returned there together. When they arrived, every Fenrisian world was being attacked by a different force. Nurgle attacked Midgardia, the Alpha Legion attacked Frostheim, and so on. The idea was to make it a mess and scatter the Wolves across each world so they couldn't solely focus on the defense of Fenris, which is considered one of the hardest worlds to siege in the galaxy due to its conditions and how fucking overpowered the Fang is. When the Dark Angels arrived with thousands of Marines from other chapters, they were shocked to see the system under so much attack from Chaos. They believed that this attack had turned the Wolves to Chaos, so they vowed to cull the Wolves and preserve their honor. All the while, the Changeling was taking different forms to encourage this to happen. The Dark Angels opened fire on Fenris, however the Grey Knights arrived, came onto the bridge of the rock, and then one of them was like, "Yo guys, you know that dude over there is the Changeling, right?" Which then caused a ruckus as the Changeling fled. It was pretty funny. With the Changeling gone, a massive army of loyalists took on a massive army of Chaos. Each Fenrisian world was slowly cleansed and retaken, except for Midgardia, which had to be exterminatus. However, the traitors' goal was achieved. They had been given enough time to enact a ritual to summon Magnus himself onto Fenris. Fenris began shaking itself apart due to Magnus's presence. A lot of shit went down, but basically it came down to a showdown between Logan and Magnus after Magnus had beaten 5 Grey Knight Dreadknights in a row all at once and was literally ripping Imperial starships out of orbit like fucking Darth Sidious. Holding both the Spear of Russ and the Axe of Morkai, Logan was a monster in his own right and struck Magnus with the Axe of Morkai. The power of Khorne within it did obscene damage to Magnus, as Khorne thinks Tzinch is a fucking nerd. Khorne actually quite enjoyed the battle and allowed his power to be used by Logan. This blow removed Magnus's shielding, which allowed the Grey Knights to banish Magnus and his demonic allies, only leaving behind a smaller force that was then massacred. Now without Logan, the Grey Knights couldn't have banished Magnus, but without the Grey Knights, Logan wouldn't have managed either. This next one isn't something many people know about, but it's fucking insane. In M36, a squad of Grey Knights were hunting the demon effects, some big demon slut, and went missing. The Grey Knight chapter declared them MIA, likely KIA, and honored them as fallen. Then 2,000 years later, they received a signal from that squad. Basically what happened is that they chased the demon effects into the warp. These guys are dedicated, goddamn. They entered a timeless part of the warp. The description of the place is that they entered an area that owed its existence to the echoes of forgotten moments, whatever the fuck that means. Now this was the Demonifex's realm, so it managed to slay the Grey Knights. However, due to the fuckery of the warp, especially in this specific location, as well as the psychic will and righteous fury of the Grey Knights, meant that they kept resurrecting every day to continue the fight. They were literally doing the Dormammu I've come to bargain shit, but instead of bargaining, they just fought over and over, slowly chipping away at the Demonifex until eventually they killed it. However, when they returned to real space, their bodies instantly began aging those 2,000 years. I mean, maybe it was more, as real space had been 2,000 years, but it could have been like 100,000 in that warp realm. They had enough time to send a signal to the chapter that the mission was accomplished before they collapsed into dust. Remember, Space Marines are not functionally immortal, they do age, slow down, and eventually can die from old age, as seen by when they faced the Harad during the Great Crusade. It just takes a few millennia, with some chapters like the Blood Angels being more resistant to aging. Only Dreadnoughts can live for over 10,000 years due to them being on life support. The final insane mission is one that hasn't happened yet, but I need to mention it. The Terminus Decree, which is the most bullshit thing and fucking sucks for the Grey Knights. Basically, the first Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights was given a wooden box with instructions to open it if only shit was really fucked. Many people believed it was the Space Marine killing virus that would infect every Space Marine in the galaxy, killing them and killing their soul. Instead, it was a note that said if the Emperor was to ever get up off the throne, they had to put him back on it by any means necessary. For some reason, the Emperor needs to be on the throne and is not allowed to recover. He's even been actively sabotaging attempts loyalists have made to heal him. What this means is that if the Emperor, through magic or science or whatever, is able to get off the throne, the Grey Knights must perform a mission, taking on the Custodian Guard, the Sisters of Silence, and the defenses of the palace, not to mention the Emperor himself, to force him back on the throne. That would be an insane mission and would fucking suck. I also just don't see any way it succeeds. Custodians are more powerful than Grey Knights, and Sisters of Silence nerf the shit out of Grey Knights. Even if they succeeded, cool, they just had to clap their own Emperor. There are two leading theories. If the Emperor was ever able to get up off the throne, consuming 1,000 Grey Knight souls immediately is probably the power boost he needs to be fully restored, so it's more of a bait tactic. With the second theory being that if the Emperor gets off the throne, it will activate the awakening of the Dark King once again, which means all of reality would be destroyed. So something as insane and desperate as the Grey Knights low-key killing him would be required. Either way, it's a shit time, and would be one hell of an insane mission. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Grey Slayer. I recommend the Doom diorama as it's limited edition and cool as fuck. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.